I don't take orders from women. The millionaire laughed, and she says, "Then you're fired," and he freezes. Arthur Sterling felt his blood boil as that young factory worker dared to challenge him at the safety meeting. His construction company, the largest in upstate New York, had never been questioned by a simple employee in a hard hat. "Mr. Sterling, I must insist that the mall project cannot continue without the proper equipment," said Maya Brooks, adjusting the orange hard hat over her brown hair tied back in a ponytail. The 58-year-old businessman abruptly rose from his leather chair, his face turning red. In the 23 years he had run Sterling Construction, no woman had ever dared speak to him that way. "Are you giving me orders?" Arthur laughed mockingly, pointing his finger at her. "Listen carefully, young lady. I don't take orders from women, least of all from a factory worker who barely finished college." Maya remained calm, her brown eyes fixed on his. She had waited 24 years for this moment. 24 years since her grandfather, Silas Brooks, had been humiliated and betrayed by the man standing before her. "Then you're fired," she said, her steady voice echoing through the conference room. Arthur froze completely. The arrogant smile vanished from his face as if it had been wiped away. The other employees in the room looked at each other, confused. "What do you mean?" Arthur stammered, thinking he had misheard. "You're fired, Mr. Sterling. You may collect your belongings," Maya repeated, pulling some papers out of a folder she had brought with her. "I am the new majority owner of Sterling Construction." The silence in the room was deafening. Arthur stared at the documents she held out, his hands trembling slightly as he read. Stock certificates, transfer documents, everything stamped and signed. 51% of the company he thought he completely controlled. "That's impossible," he whispered, still staring at the papers. "Those shares weren't for sale." "Not directly," Maya explained, putting the documents back in her folder. "But life has an interesting way of putting things in their proper place, don't you think?" Arthur sat down heavily, the world spinning around him. How had that young woman, whom he knew only as another factory worker, managed to buy his company? And why did her name, Brooks, now sound so familiar? "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "I'm Maya Brooks, granddaughter of Silas Brooks. Remember him? Your former partner and best friend, until the day you decided he was disposable." The words hit the room like a bomb. Arthur felt the ground collapse beneath his feet. Silas Brooks, his partner of decades, the man who had helped him build everything from nothing. The man he had forced to sell his share of the company for a pittance during the 2008 financial crisis, taking advantage of his desperate financial situation. Maya watched the look of recognition and horror on his face. All those years studying civil engineering, working at other companies to gain experience, meticulously planning every step, had led to this moment. "Your grandfather," Arthur began, but Maya interrupted him. "My grandfather spent the last 15 years of his life telling our whole family how his best friend betrayed him, how you built this company together, with your own hands, and how you took advantage of the financial crisis to steal everything from him." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The other employees in the room began whispering among themselves, trying to process what was happening. Helena Ferreira, Martha Higgins, Arthur's secretary for 15 years, looked at Maya with an expression that mixed surprise and something that seemed like relief. "Maya, is that really you?" asked Henry, the chief engineer, a 50-year-old man who had worked at the company since the time of Silas Brooks. "Are you really Mr. Silas's granddaughter?" "Yes, Henry, and I remember you. My grandfather always spoke fondly of you. He said you were one of the few good men left in this company." Henry stood up, his hands trembling slightly. "Young lady, your grandfather was the most honest man I ever knew. When he was forced out—" "He wasn't forced out," Arthur interrupted, trying to regain his composure. "He sold voluntarily. I bought his share because he needed the money." Maya laughed, but there was no humor in her voice. "For 10% of the actual value of the shares, after you spread rumors about the company's financial stability to the banks, after you made sure no other investor would be interested in his shares." "You can't prove that." Arthur defended himself, but his voice sounded less and less convincing. "Actually, I can. Martha, would you mind handing over those documents you've kept all these years? All eyes turned to the secretary, who was opening a drawer in her desk with trembling hands. Martha pulled out a bulky folder, its pages yellowed with age. I kept copies of everything, said Martha, her voice almost a whisper. Every recorded conversation, every email, every document that proves how you manipulated the situation to hurt Mr. Silas. Arthur went pale. Martha, I worked for Mr. Silas before I worked for you, Martha replied, handing the folder to Maya. He was a good man, who treated all his employees like family. When you betrayed him, I wanted to leave, but he asked me to stay and keep evidence in case justice could ever be done. Maya opened the folder and began flipping through the documents. Emails between Arthur and clients, where he suggested Silas was having financial problems. Recordings of phone calls where Arthur discouraged investors interested in his partner's shares. Forged contracts to show non-existent company debts. 23 years, Mr. Sterling. 23 years of evidence kept by a secretary loyal to the man you betrayed. Arthur tried to stand up, but his legs seemed to have lost their strength. You don't understand. That's how business works. It was him or me. The company was going through hard times. The company was going through hard times because you were siphoning money into failed personal investments. Maya countered, pulling another document from the folder. Your grandfather found out and confronted you. That's when you decided he had to go. The phone in the meeting room rang, interrupting the tension of the moment. Martha answered with a trembling voice. Sterling Construction, good afternoon. Yes, she's here. Of course. One moment. Martha covered the phone and looked at Maya. It's the lawyer, Mr. Vance. Maya nodded and picked up the phone. Mr. Vance, is everything ready? Yes, Maya. All the documents have been filed. The property transfer is official. As of now, you are officially the president and largest shareholder of Sterling Construction. Arthur heard the conversation and felt his world completely crumble. Vance? David Vance is my lawyer. Maya hung up the phone and looked at him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. He was your lawyer, Mr. Sterling. Mr. Vance has been working for my family for 6 months, preparing all the legal documentation for this transition. That's impossible. David has worked for me for 10 years. And you made a fortune during those 10 years helping the man with questionable business deals, Maya replied. But when we presented the evidence of the crimes he helped cover up, he decided it was better to cooperate with us than to face prosecution. Arthur staggered to his feet, gripping the table to keep from falling. You planned all of this for years. Ever since I was 8 years old and saw my grandfather cry for the first time, Maya confirmed. Ever since our family lost everything and had to move to a modest neighborhood in Oak Cliff because you stole the livelihood of a lifetime of honest work. Martha approached Maya, tears streaming down her face. Child, your grandfather would be so proud. He always said that one day justice would be served. How did you get the money to buy the shares? Arthur asked, still trying to understand how he had been defeated. Maya smiled for the first time since she had entered the room. My grandfather was smarter than you thought. When he realized he was being betrayed, he secretly transferred a good portion of his assets to an account in my mother's name. It wasn't much, but it was enough for me to get started. Started what? My own engineering firm. Small but honest. For 10 years I worked 16 hours a day, taking on the projects other companies rejected. I built a solid reputation, and more importantly, I built a network of contacts who respected my work. Henry, who had remained quiet, finally spoke up. The construction projects in the Dallas metropolitan area. Brooks Engineering. That was you. That was me. And when I started making enough profit, I created a holding company to buy shares in struggling businesses. Companies like Sterling Construction, which was losing contracts because of mismanagement and lack of ethics. Arthur looked around the room, seeing the faces of employees he had known for years. Some looked shocked, others relieved, and a few were clearly pleased with the turn of events. The employees, Arthur muttered. Are you going to fire everyone? Maya shook her head. I'm only going to fire the people who were involved in the unethical schemes. The rest of the employees will stay. In fact, many will receive promotions that were denied for years because of your prejudice against women and people from humbler backgrounds. It was at that moment that Alison Perry, the young civil engineer Arthur had tried to fire the previous week because she was pregnant, appeared at the conference room door. "Sorry for the interruption, but security said I could come in," Alison said, looking confused at the scene. "Alison, I'm glad you're here," Maya said, gesturing for her to come closer. "I wanted to talk to you about your reinstatement." "Reinstatement?" Alison asked, confused. "Mr. Sterling no longer has the authority to fire anyone. You're back, with a raise and a promotion to project supervisor." Alison looked at Arthur, who was visibly shaken, then at Maya. "I don't understand what's going on." "Sterling Construction has changed owners," Henry explained, a smile spreading across his face. "And it looks like we'll finally have a company where competence matters more than prejudice." Maya addressed Arthur, who was still holding onto the table. "You have until the end of the day to gather your personal belongings. Security will escort you to make sure no confidential documents leave the building." "And my other businesses? My properties?" Arthur asked, a note of desperation in his voice. "That will depend on the results of the audit being conducted on all your companies. If we find more irregularities, additional lawsuits will be filed." Arthur staggered toward the door, but stopped and turned around. "You don't know how hard it is to run a company. This is no business for a woman. You'll go bankrupt in less than 2 years." Maya looked at him with a serene expression. "Mr. Sterling, my company grossed $15 million last year. Your company, under your management, was 6 months away from bankruptcy before I bought the shares. I think we all know who really understands business." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. After Arthur left the room escorted by security, a contemplative silence settled over the room. The employees present were still processing the dramatic change that had just taken place. Martha approached Maya, holding her hands warmly. "Girl, I prayed for years for this day to come. Your grandfather was like a father to me. When my husband lost his job 10 years ago, it was Mr. Silas who helped us financially, even after he had lost everything himself." Maya felt her eyes well up. "My grandfather always spoke of you with great fondness, Mrs. Higgins. He used to say you were the good soul of this company." "And now? What's going to happen to us?" asked Frank, the construction foreman, a 55-year-old man who had worked at the company for over 20 years. Maya looked at each person in the room before answering. "Frank, Henry, Alison, Martha, all of you who built this company with honest work will have your jobs guaranteed. More than that, we're going to implement changes that should have happened a long time ago." Henry, who had known Maya since she was a child visiting her grandfather at the office, shook his head in admiration. "You grew up and became exactly what your grandfather dreamed you would be. He always said you would be someone special. He taught me that true strength doesn't come from humiliating others, but from lifting up those beside you," Maya replied. "This company is going to operate on the values my grandfather stood for: respect, honesty, and equal treatment for everyone." Alison, still absorbing the news that she was reinstated and promoted, asked, "How did you manage to get into the company without anyone knowing who you really were?" Maya smiled. "I used my mother's last name, Brooks, which was also my grandfather's last name, so it didn't raise any suspicion. I started as a line worker 8 months ago to understand how the company worked from the inside and to identify who the honest people were and who was involved in Arthur's schemes." "8 months planning this?" Martha asked, impressed. "Actually, it was 24 years of planning," Maya corrected. 8 months of executing. Every step was carefully calculated. First, I had to build my own company and reputation. Then I created the holding company to buy shares discreetly. After that, I gathered the evidence of the crimes using the documentation Mrs. Higgins kept and the cooperation of Mr. Vance. Henry looked thoughtful. "The shares you bought, how did you get the shareholders to sell without Arthur finding out?" "Arthur was always too arrogant to pay attention to the minor shareholders," Maya explained. "He only focused on the biggest investors, ignoring the fact that many retired employees and small investors also owned shares. When I started offering fair prices for those shares, Many were happy to sell. And the major shareholders? Alison asked. Maya opened her folder again and pulled out more documents. Here's the most interesting part. Arthur had been using company funds for failed personal investments. When that started affecting the dividends, the major shareholders became dissatisfied. It wasn't hard to convince them to sell when I showed them evidence of the mismanagement. Martha shook her head. He was always greedy. Over the past few years, I noticed he was growing increasingly desperate for money. His wife doesn't know anything about this, Frank commented. Mrs. Sterling is a good person. It's going to be a shock for her. Maya nodded. Eleanor Sterling has always treated all employees with respect. I have nothing against her. In fact, I'm sure she was also deceived by her husband about the family's real financial situation. The phone rang again, and Martha answered it. After a brief conversation, she hung up and looked at Maya. It was the company's accountant, Mr. Grant. He wants to speak with the new owner urgently. You can ask him to come up, Maya said. I think he has important things to tell us. While they waited for the accountant, Maya took the opportunity to explain her first changes. Starting Monday, we'll implement some new policies. First, equal pay between men and women who perform the same roles. Second, a company daycare for working mothers. Third, a professional development program for anyone who wants to grow within the company. That's going to cost a lot of money, Henry observed, concerned. Actually, it's going to save money in the long run, Maya explained. Satisfied employees are more productive, miss fewer days, and stay longer with the company. That reduces turnover and training costs. Michael Grant, the company's accountant for 12 years, walked into the room with a nervous expression. He was a short man, 45 years old, who had always seemed intimidated by Arthur's presence. Ms. Brooks, I need to confess some things, he said, his hands trembling as he held a folder full of documents. Have a seat, Mr. Grant. Please, speak freely. Michael took a deep breath before beginning. For years, Mr. Sterling forced me to manipulate the accounting books. He embezzled company money for personal investments and forced me to create false records to hide the embezzlement. Do you have evidence of this? Maya asked. I have copies of everything kept at home. I always knew this would come to light one day, so I documented every irregularity to protect myself. Henry leaned forward. Michael, why did you never report him? He threatened my family, Michael replied, his voice breaking. He said that if I said anything, he would make sure I'd never get a job as an accountant anywhere again. My wife was undergoing cancer treatment at the time, and I couldn't risk losing the health insurance. Maya stood up and placed her hand on his shoulder. Mr. Grant, you won't be punished for being coerced. In fact, your cooperation will be essential for us to recover the money stolen from the company. You're really going to keep me in my job? He asked, incredulous. Yes, but with one condition. From now on, I want total transparency. Any irregularity, any pressure to do something wrong, you report it to me immediately. Michael nodded vigorously. You can count on me. I want to work for an honest company again. Martha looked at Maya with admiration. Girl, you're doing exactly what your grandfather would do. He always believed in giving a second chance to people who made mistakes under pressure or out of necessity. Maya smiled, remembering her grandfather's words. He always said that the true measure of a person isn't in the mistakes they make, but in the courage they have to correct them. The rest of the afternoon was dedicated to meetings with different departments of the company. Maya wanted to fully understand how each sector worked and identify what changes were necessary. During the meeting with the Human Resources Department, she discovered that several talented female employees had been systematically passed over for promotions, regardless of their competence. Claudia Oliveira should have been promoted to project manager 3 years ago, explained Susan, the HR coordinator. She has the best performance review in the department, but Mr. Arthur always found excuses to promote less qualified men. Where is Claudia now? Maya asked. She resigned last month. She said she was tired of watching less prepared men get promoted while she was ignored. Maya wrote the name down in her notebook. Susan, I want you to get in touch with Claudia today. Offer her the project manager position with the salary she should have been receiving 3 years ago. What if she's already found another job? We offer better terms. A fair company always finds room for talent, wasted by prejudice. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. While Maya was reorganizing the company, Arthur Sterling arrived home completely destroyed. His mansion in the Highland Park area, which had always been a source of pride, now seemed like a monument to his defeated arrogance. Eleanor Sterling, his wife of 25 years, immediately noticed something was wrong when he walked through the door at 3 in the afternoon, much earlier than usual. "Arthur, what are you doing home at this hour?" asked Eleanor, an elegant 52-year-old woman who had dedicated her life to taking care of the family and charity work. Arthur slumped onto the living room sofa, covering his face with his hands. "Eleanor, we lost everything." "What do you mean we lost everything? What are you talking about?" Arthur lifted his face, his eyes red with anger and humiliation. "The company, our company, it was bought by a girl, some ordinary factory worker who came out of nowhere." Eleanor sat down beside him, worried. "Arthur, are you serious? How is that possible?" "She bought 51% of the shares. She showed up at the company today and fired me, in front of all the employees." "But the shares weren't for sale. How did she—" Arthur cut off his wife with a brusque gesture. "She's the granddaughter of Silas Brooks. Remember him? My former business partner." Eleanor went pale. She remembered Silas Brooks very well. A kind, honest man who had been very good to her in the early years of the marriage. She also remembered how Arthur had changed after Silas left the company, becoming more arrogant and callous. "Arthur, what did you do to Silas back then? You always said he sold his share voluntarily." "He sold it," Arthur exploded, but his voice carried a note of desperation. "He needed the money and I bought his share. It was a fair deal." Eleanor had known her husband for decades and could always tell when he was lying. "Arthur, tell me the truth. What really happened?" "The truth?" Arthur laughed bitterly. "The truth is that girl humiliated me in front of all the employees. She treated me like I was a criminal." "You are a criminal, Arthur." The voice came from the doorway of the living room. The two turned and saw Julian Sterling, the couple's 28-year-old son, who had just arrived home from work. "Julian!" Eleanor exclaimed. "What a horrible thing to say about your father." Julian walked into the room, his expression serious. "Mom, you don't know what I know. For years I've been discovering things about Dad's business dealings that make me ashamed of our last name." Arthur stood up, furious. "How dare you talk to me like that? Everything you have, everything we have, comes from my work." "It comes from the work you stole from Mr. Silas," Julian shot back. "It comes from the money you embezzled from the company. It comes from the employees you exploited and humiliated for years." Eleanor looked from one to the other, confused. "What are you two talking about? What embezzled money?" Julian sat down next to his mother. "Mum, 2 years ago I accidentally found out Dad was using company money for failed personal investments. I confronted him, and he threatened me. He said if I told anyone, he'd disown me and destroy my career." "Julian, that's a lie." Arthur tried to defend himself, but even he didn't sound convincing. "Is it a lie that you lost $300,000 investing in cryptocurrency with company money? Is it a lie that you forced the accountant to falsify documents to cover up the embezzlement? Is it a lie that you fired 3 female employees last year just because they questioned your decisions?" Eleanor stood up, beginning to grasp the magnitude of what she was discovering. "Arthur, is this true?" Arthur tried to approach his wife, but she stepped back. "Eleanor, you don't understand how hard it is to run a company. Sometimes you have to make tough decisions." "Stealing isn't a tough decision, Arthur. It's a crime," Julian interrupted. "And treating women like second-class citizens isn't business management. It's sexism." "Sexism?" Arthur laughed scornfully. "I built a successful company. I gave jobs to hundreds of people." "You built a company by exploiting other people's work and stealing the share that belonged to your partner," Julian replied. "And now that someone finally had the courage to make things right, you come here playing the victim." Eleanor sat back down, her hands trembling. "Arthur, those jewels you gave me last year, where did that money come from?" Arthur hesitated before answering. They were company bonuses. Bonuses you gave yourself using money that wasn't yours, Julian finished. Mom, the jewels, her new car, our trip to Europe last year, all of it was paid for with stolen money. Eleanor took off the pearl necklace she was wearing, a gift from Arthur on their last wedding anniversary. I can't wear this knowing where it came from. Arthur tried to approach again. Eleanor, please. We've been married for 25 years. You're going to believe him and not me? I'm going to believe the truth, Arthur. And for the first time in years, I'm seeing the truth clearly. Julian stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the garden that had always been a source of family pride. Dad, I've worked at the company for 4 years. I know how you treat employees, especially women. I've watched you humiliate people in public just because you could. I've always been firm with employees. That's how you maintain discipline. Arthur tried to justify himself. Firm? Julian turned around, his voice heavy with emotion. You made Alison cry in front of everyone because she had the courage to disagree with you about a project. You fired Rachel because she asked for maternity leave. You said to Henry's face that black men aren't fit for leadership positions. Eleanor covered her face with her hands, horrified. Arthur, did you really say that? Henry is a good employee, but nothing, Julian exploded. Henry has more knowledge and experience than anyone at the company, including you. The only reason he's never been promoted is because you can't accept that a black man could be your equal. Arthur sat down heavily, realizing he was losing support even from his own family. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Running a company isn't easy. Running a company honestly isn't easy, Eleanor corrected, but you chose the easy way out, stealing, lying, and humiliating people. The house phone rang, interrupting the family argument. Eleanor answered with a trembling voice. Sterling residence. Yes, he's here. One moment, please. Eleanor covered the phone and looked at Arthur. It's a journalist. He wants to talk about the change in company ownership. Arthur went pale. Tell him I'm not here. Arthur, the whole city already knows. There's no point in hiding. Julian took the phone from his mother's hand. Hello? This is Julian Sterling, Arthur's son. Yes, I can confirm that there has been a change in company ownership. No, I won't comment on the circumstances, thank you. He hung up and looked at his father. Dad, this will be in every paper tomorrow. You have 2 options. Face the consequences of your actions with dignity, or keep playing the victim and destroy what's left of our family's reputation. Arthur looked at his wife and son, seeing in their eyes a mixture of disappointment and pity. For the first time in decades, he felt truly alone. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. We want you to admit your mistakes and try to make them right, Eleanor replied. We want you to go to Maya Brooks and apologize for what you did to her family. Never, Arthur exploded again. I will not humiliate myself before some random girl. Then you've lost us too, Julian said, standing up. Mom, I'm going to stay at my apartment for a while. When Dad decides to become a real man and take responsibility for his actions, you can call me. Julian left the room, leaving Arthur and Eleanor alone. The silence between them was deafening. Eleanor, Arthur tried once more. I need time, Arthur. I need time to process all of this and decide if I still know the man I married. Eleanor also stood and headed for the stairs. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight, and I think you'd better find a lawyer. From what I understand, your problems are just beginning. Arthur was left alone in the living room, surrounded by the luxury he had acquired through dishonest means. For the first time in his life, he found himself forced to confront the consequences of his choices. Meanwhile, at the company, Maya worked late into the evening, reorganizing departments and planning the changes she would implement. Martha had stayed to help her, touched by the young woman's dedication. Maya, you don't have to try to fix everything in one day, Martha said, pouring coffee for both of them. Mrs. Higgins, I waited 24 years for this opportunity. Every day we don't work to correct the injustices of this company is a lost day. Martha smiled, seeing in Maya's eyes the same determination she had seen in her grandfather decades ago. Your grandfather would be so proud to see what you've become. He taught me that true victory isn't in defeating your enemies, but in building something better than what they destroyed, Maya replied, gazing through the office windows at the city stretching out below. And the employees who were complicit with Arthur. What are you going to do with them? Maya thought for a moment before answering. I'm going to give each one the opportunity to confess their involvement in the unethical schemes and work to make things right. Those who choose honesty will get a second chance. Those who choose to keep lying will be fired. And if Arthur tries to retaliate, he has powerful connections in the city. Maya smiled, but her eyes showed steely determination. Mrs. Higgins, I spent years preparing for this fight. I have enough evidence to destroy any attempt at retaliation from him. And more importantly, I have something he never had. The truth on my side. The desk phone rang. Martha answered and after a brief conversation, looked at Maya with surprise. That was Sarah Vance. She accepts the project manager position and wants to start on Monday. Maya smiled, feeling the pieces of the puzzle finally starting to fall into place. Excellent. And the other employees who were unfairly fired? I've already contacted 5 of them. They all want to come back. Perfect. We're going to turn this company into what it should have always been, a place where talent is recognized, regardless of gender, color, or social background. Martha looked at Maya with admiration. You know this isn't going to be easy, right? Changing a deeply rooted corporate culture takes time. I know, Mrs. Higgins, but my grandfather always said that the most important changes start with a single person having the courage to do what's right. Today, that person is me. The 2 women kept working late into the night, planning the future of a company that now had the chance to become an example of fairness and equality in the business world. Across town, Arthur Sterling remained awake in his office, surrounded by the wreckage of his arrogance. For the first time in decades, he was beginning to understand the true price of his choices, and for the first time in his life, he had no one to blame but himself. The next morning brought a new reality for everyone involved in the dramatic turnaround at Sterling Construction. Maya arrived early at the company, at 7 in the morning, and found several employees already waiting in the parking lot. Good morning, everyone, Maya greeted, still wearing her orange uniform and hard hat. Why are you here so early? Henry stepped forward, representing the group. Maya, we wanted to talk to you before the official workday starts. There are some important things we need to tell you. Maya looked at the faces around her. They were long-time employees, people who had worked with her grandfather and stayed with the company even under Arthur's troubled management. Of course, let's talk. Come on up, we'll use the conference room. Once they were settled, Frank, the construction foreman, spoke up. Maya, first of all, we want to say that we're really happy about the change, but we also want to warn you about some people in the company that you need to watch out for. Tell me everything. Henry opened a folder he had brought with him. Derek Foster from the sales department has a scheme going with suppliers. He takes kickbacks to inflate construction material costs. Besides that, Frank continued, Brenda Hayes from finance has been helping Arthur move money from the company into his personal accounts. She documents the transfers as external consulting services. Maya wrote down all the names and details. Do you have proof of this? We have some documents and some recordings, Susan from HR replied, but we were afraid to report it because Arthur always threatened anyone who questioned him. Starting today, no one needs to be afraid to tell the truth, Maya assured them. I want you to give me all the evidence you have. We're going to clean this company up completely. Martha arrived at 8 o'clock and joined the group. Maya, I have more important information. Last night I got calls from 3 major clients of the company. What did they want? They found out about the change in leadership and wanted to know if their contracts would still be valid. But more importantly, 2 of them admitted that Arthur was charging more than what had been agreed on in the contracts, pocketing the difference. Maya shook her head, not surprised but disappointed by the extent of the corruption. Mrs. Higgins, I want you to reschedule meetings with all the clients for next week. We're going to review every contract and refund any money that was charged improperly. That's going to cost the company a lot of money, Henry observed, concerned. Henry, I'd rather have a smaller, honest company than a large, corrupt one. In the long run, honesty always pays off. At 9 o'clock, when the official workday began, Maya called a general meeting with all company employees. The main auditorium was packed. Many had come just to meet the new owner. Maya walked onto the stage, still wearing her worker's uniform, and looked out at the hundreds of faces in front of her. Some curious, others hopeful, some clearly nervous. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Maya Brooks, the new owner of Sterling Construction. Some of you know me as the worker on the construction site. Others found out yesterday that I'm the granddaughter of Silas Brooks, one of the founders of this company. A murmur spread through the auditorium. Maya waited for silence to return before continuing. I'm not here to give a pretty speech about unity and teamwork. I'm here to tell the truth. This company has been run dishonestly and discriminatorily. That ends today. She paused, letting her words echo. From now on, we will implement fundamental changes. First, any form of discrimination based on gender, color, age, or social background will result in immediate termination. Second, all corruption schemes will be investigated and punished. Third, competent and honest employees will have real opportunities for growth, regardless of their personal characteristics. Maya noticed some employees seemed relieved, while others were clearly uncomfortable with her words. I know some of you were involved in unethical practices out of pressure or fear. As of now, you have 48 hours to go to HR and confess any wrongdoing. Whoever chooses honesty will get a second chance. Whoever chooses to keep lying will be fired the moment we find out the truth. Derek Foster from the commercial department raised his hand. And what if someone falsely accuses another employee out of revenge? Maya looked directly at him. All reports will be rigorously investigated. False reports will also result in termination. We want justice, not a witch hunt. Brenda Hayes from Finance asked, Will the changes affect our salaries? Yes, they will, Maya replied, causing a murmur of concern. Employees who were being underpaid due to discrimination will have their salaries adjusted to fair amounts. Employees who were receiving inflated salaries due to favoritism will have their salaries reassessed based on actual competence. After the general meeting, Maya met individually with each department. In the commercial department, she found clear evidence of Derek's kickback scheme. In finance, she discovered that Brenda had created a series of shell companies to justify irregular transfers. Derek, Brenda, I want both of you in my office at 2 o'clock this afternoon, Maya announced at the end of the departmental meetings. At exactly 2 o'clock, the two employees walked into Maya's office, visibly nervous. Have a seat, Maya said, placing 2 files on the desk. These files contain evidence of the wrongdoing you've committed. Derek, we have here proof of at least $200,000 in kickbacks received from suppliers over the past 2 years. Brenda, we have evidence of your involvement in fraudulent transfers, totaling nearly $500,000. The two remained silent, knowing they'd been caught. You have 2 options, Maya continued. Option 1, you confess everything, return the stolen money, and I won't press criminal charges. You'll be fired, but you can try to start your lives over somewhere else. Option 2, you keep denying everything, and I hand over all the evidence to the proper authorities. Derek was the first to speak. Maya, I only got into this because Arthur said it was normal in the construction business, said everyone did the same thing. Derek, you're an adult with a degree in business administration. You knew very well you were stealing. Brenda started crying. I have 2 young children. If I go to prison, you should have thought about that before stealing money that would have secured other families' futures, Maya replied, her tone unchanged. What's your decision? The 2 of them chose to confess and return the money. Maya fired them on the spot, but kept her promise not to press charges. One last thing, Maya said as they were leaving. I'm going to be watching your careers from here on out. If I find out you're pulling the same stunts at other companies, all the evidence I have here goes straight to the authorities. Use this second chance to build honest lives. The rest of the week was spent cleaning the company of every corrupt scheme. Maya discovered the corruption ran even deeper than she had imagined, from small material diversions to major inflated contracts. On Friday, she received an unexpected call. Maya Brooks, this is Eleanor Sterling, Arthur's wife. Maya was surprised. "Mrs. Sterling, how can I help you?" "I'd like to meet with you in person, if possible. There are some things I need to say and some things I need to return." Maya agreed to meet her Saturday morning at the company office. Eleanor arrived right at 9 o'clock carrying a small suitcase. "Maya, first I want to apologize for my husband's behavior. I knew he could be arrogant, but I had no idea the extent of his crimes." "Mrs. Sterling, you bear no responsibility for his actions." Eleanor opened the suitcase, revealing jewelry, documents, and a few valuables. "These are all the things Arthur gave me over the years. My son told me they were bought with money stolen from the company. I want to give it all back." Maya looked at the contents of the suitcase, impressed by the woman's integrity. "Mrs. Sterling, this isn't necessary. You were deceived by him." "Maya, I married Arthur 25 years ago, thinking he was an honorable man. Finding out we built our life on stolen money was a terrible shock. I can't keep anything I know was obtained dishonestly." The two women sat down, and Eleanor continued. "There's one more thing. Arthur is planning to try to take back the company through legal action. He's claiming the stock purchase was fraudulent." Maya didn't seem surprised. "I expected him to try something like that. I have all the legal documents in order and enough evidence of his crimes to neutralize any attempt at retaliation." "Maya, may I ask a personal question? What exactly happened between Arthur and your grandfather?" Maya took a deep breath before answering. "My grandfather and Arthur were best friends since their youth. They built the company together, splitting the profits and responsibilities equally. But when the 2008 financial crisis hit, Arthur saw an opportunity to take full control." "How did he do it?" "He spread rumors about the company's financial stability to the banks, making it difficult for my grandfather to access credit. He created situations that made it seem like my grandfather was making bad decisions. And when my grandfather was desperate for money to pay off the personal debts he had taken on to keep the company running, Arthur offered to buy his share for a fraction of its real value." Eleanor shook her head, horrified. "And your grandfather accepted?" "He didn't have a choice. Arthur made sure of that. My grandfather lost everything, the company, the house, his dignity. Our family had to move to a modest neighborhood, and he had to work as a bricklayer for other people until he died." "How did you find out the truth?" "My grandfather always suspected he had been betrayed, but he only got proof years later, when some long-time company employees started telling him what had really happened. Unfortunately, by the time he had enough evidence, he was already sick and didn't have the strength to fight anymore." Eleanor stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city. "Maya, there's one more thing you need to know. Arthur didn't spend the stolen money only on luxuries. He lost a lot of money in bad investments and gambling. Gambling. In the last 5 years, he became addicted to online betting. He lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's why the company's embezzlement intensified. He was trying to recover the lost money." Maya processed this information, finally understanding why Arthur had become increasingly desperate in recent years. "Mrs. Sterling, what are you going to do now?" "I'm leaving him. I've already hired a lawyer. I can't stay married to a man who built our entire life on lies and theft." "And your son?" "Julian is on my side. Actually, he was the one who opened my eyes to the truth about his father. We're going to start our lives over, far away from all of this." The two women talked for another hour, and Maya was impressed by Eleanor's strength and dignity. As she was leaving, Maya made an unexpected proposal. "Mrs. Sterling, you have management experience through your work with charitable organizations, right?" "Yes, why?" "I'm thinking about creating a foundation to help families of employees going through hard times. I'd like you to consider running that foundation." Eleanor was surprised. "Maya, I'm the wife of the man who destroyed your family. Why would you do that?" "Because you're not responsible for his crimes, and because I believe that people who have gone through hardships can help others in similar situations with more empathy and understanding." Eleanor accepted the proposal, and the two began planning the foundation that would become one of the most important projects of the company's new management. The following Monday, Maya implemented more significant changes. Sarah Vance took over as project manager, bringing an energy and competence that impressed all departments. Alison Perry, now a supervisor, started working on an in-house daycare project. Henry was promoted to technical director, a position he should have held years ago. His first decision was to implement new safety protocols that Arthur had rejected as unnecessary and expensive. "Maya," Henry said during a board meeting, "in 2 months, we've managed to reduce workplace accidents by 70% just by implementing basic safety measures." "And the financial impact?" Maya asked. "The initial costs were offset by the reduction in spending on medical leave and compensation. Besides, our reputation in the industry has improved drastically." Martha, now promoted to administrative manager, presented a report on the changes implemented. "Maya, in the last 2 months, we've had only 3 resignations compared to an average of 20 per month last year. Employee turnover has dropped to less than 2%. And productivity? It's increased by 40%. Satisfied employees work better and make fewer mistakes." Michael, the accountant, who had completely redeemed himself after confessing his forced participation in Arthur's schemes, presented the financial report. "Even returning all the stolen money to clients and investing in company improvements, our net profit this quarter was 15% higher than in the same period last year." Maya smiled, satisfied with the results. "And all of this just by treating people with dignity and operating with honesty." The company's transformation did not go unnoticed by the region's construction industry. Other companies began implementing similar changes, creating a positive ripple effect. Maya received an invitation to speak at a national engineering conference on ethical business management. Her presentation, titled "How Honesty Transformed Our Company," became a landmark in the industry. Meanwhile, Arthur Sterling faced the consequences of his actions. His lawsuits against Maya were dismissed one by one, as evidence of his misconduct piled up. He was forced to sell his mansion to pay off debts and fines. Julian sought out Maya 3 months after the change in leadership. "Maya, I want to apologize for my father and thank you for what you did for our family." "Julian, you don't have to apologize for someone else's actions, even if that someone is your father." "Yes, I do. For years I knew something was wrong, but I was too much of a coward to confront him. I could have prevented a lot of suffering if I'd had the courage to speak up sooner." Maya studied the young man before her. Julian had a degree in business administration and had worked in several departments of the company before the change in leadership. "Julian, can I ask you a question? What do you want to do with your life now?" "I want to work for an honest company. I want to help build something good, not tear things down. We have an open position for a new projects coordinator. It's a junior role with a modest starting salary, but with real opportunities for merit-based growth. Are you interested?" Julian was surprised. "You would give me a chance after everything my father did." "Julian, you are not your father, and everyone deserves the chance to choose the kind of person they want to be." Julian accepted the position and became one of the company's most dedicated employees, working tirelessly to prove he was different from his father. A year after taking control of the company, Maya organized a special ceremony. In the main lobby of the company, a bronze plaque was installed with the following inscription: "In memory of Silas Brooks and all the honest workers who built this company with dignity and integrity." During the ceremony, Maya gave an emotional speech. "This plaque is not just a tribute to my grandfather. It's a daily reminder that our company exists to serve the community, not to enrich a few people at the expense of others." Martha, now with tears in her eyes, approached Maya after the ceremony. "Your grandfather would be so proud to see what this company has become." "Mrs. Higgins, he always said that the true measure of success isn't in what we achieve for ourselves, but in what we leave for future generations. I hope we're building a legacy he would approve of." Sarah, who had become one of the company's most respected directors, joined the conversation. "Maya, I want you to know that working here changed my life. For the first time, I feel valued for my knowledge and competence, not judged by my gender." Henry, now technical director, added, "And we achieved all of this without sacrificing profitability. We proved that ethics and business success can go hand in hand." The company became a model in the industry, receiving several awards for its innovative and ethical business practices. Maya was invited to join the boards of several business organizations, always advocating for policies of equality and transparency. 2 years after the transformation, Maya was in her office reviewing reports when Martha announced an unexpected visitor. "Maya, there's someone here who would like to speak with you." Arthur Sterling walked into the office, visibly older and worn down, his hair now completely grey, his clothes plain in contrast to the expensive suits he used to wear. "Maya, thank you for seeing me," he said, his voice humble. "Mr. Sterling, what brings you here?" Arthur sat down in the chair across from the desk, his hands trembling slightly. "I came to apologize. To you, to the memory of your grandfather, to all the employees I harmed over the years." Maya studied him carefully. "Are these sincere apologies, or do you want something?" "They're sincere. I lost everything, Maya, my company, my family, my reputation. But the worst part is that I lost respect for myself. It took 2 years for me to fully understand the harm I caused." "And what do you intend to do with that understanding?" Arthur pulled some papers from his pocket. "I'm working as a freelance consultant now, helping small businesses with administrative problems. I don't make much, but it's honest work. And I implement the same equality policies in all of them that you implemented here." Maya was surprised. "Really?" "Really. I also started attending a support group for gambling addicts. It's been hard, but I'm learning to deal with my problems without hurting other people." The two remained silent for a few moments. Maya could see that Arthur was genuinely remorseful, but she also knew that words were easy to say. "Mr. Sterling, I appreciate your apologies, but you need to understand that forgiveness doesn't erase the consequences of your actions." "I understand. I'm not asking for forgiveness to make myself feel better. I'm asking for forgiveness because you deserve to hear it. Your grandfather was a better man than I ever was, and you became the leader I could never be." Arthur stood up to leave, but Maya called him back. "Mr. Sterling, one question. If you could go back in time, would you do things differently?" Arthur thought for a long moment before answering. "Maya, for years I believed the business world was a war where only the cruelest survived. I thought kindness was weakness, and ethics was a luxury only failures could afford. Today I see that I was completely wrong. You proved that it's possible to be successful by being honest. If I could go back in time, I would try to learn from your grandfather instead of betraying him." After Arthur left, Maya remained thoughtful in her office. Martha came back with coffee and sat down across from her. "What did you think of his visit?" Martha asked. "I think he finally understood, but understanding and changing are two different things. We'll see if he can maintain the change." "Did you forgive him?" Maya smiled slightly. "Mrs. Higgins, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or trusting again. It means not letting anger consume our energy. I forgave Arthur, but that doesn't mean I'm going to work with him or trust him. It just means I'm not going to spend energy hating him anymore. Your grandfather would be proud of the woman you've become." "I hope so, Mrs. Higgins. I hope so." The afternoon was coming to an end when Maya received a call from Eleanor, who now successfully ran the company's foundation. "Maya, I have news for you. We managed to help 50 families this month, and 3 local companies want to implement similar programs." "What kind of help did you offer?" "Everything from basic food baskets for struggling families to scholarships for employees' children. We also started a microcredit program for employees who want to start small businesses." Maya smiled, pleased with the foundation's success. "And how is your new life?" "Much better. It was hard at first, especially dealing with the shame of what Arthur had done. But working at the foundation gave me a new purpose. I feel like I'm helping to repair, at least in part, the harm he caused." "And Julian?" "Julian is thriving at the company. He tells me every day how rewarding it is to work in an environment where he feels respected and valued." After hanging up, Maya looked out her office window at the company courtyard, where employees chatted animatedly at the end of the workday. Children played in the new recreation area that had been built next to the daycare center. 3 years had passed since she had walked into that same meeting room and fired Arthur Sterling. 3 years of hard work, but rewarding. The company hadn't just survived the transition, it had thrived in ways no one had ever imagined possible. The phone rang again. It was Henry with news about a new contract. "Maya, you won't believe this. The city selected our company to build the new educational complex. It's the biggest contract in our history. How did we get it?" Our reputation for integrity and quality spoke for itself. The mayor said he wanted to work with a company he could fully trust. Maya smiled, remembering her grandfather's words. Honesty may not bring immediate results, but it always brings the best long-term outcomes. That evening, Maya worked late, finishing the company's annual reports. The numbers were impressive. Record profits, 0 serious workplace accidents, employee turnover under 5%, and a waiting list of qualified professionals wanting to work for the company. But more important than the numbers were the human stories behind them. Allison, who now ran the Human Resources Department, had implemented parental leave policies that became a model for other companies. Sarah led a team of female engineers who were revolutionizing the region's sustainable construction methods. Henry had created a mentorship program where experienced employees helped new talent grow, regardless of their social background or academic training. The program had already resulted in dozens of promotions based purely on merit. Martha, at 65, had become one of the most respected executives in the industry, proving that experience and wisdom were just as valuable as youth and innovation. When Maya finally left the office that night, she stopped in front of the plaque honoring her grandfather. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the pain of loss, but rather the satisfaction of a job well done. "We made it, Grandpa," she whispered, gently touching the bronze plaque. "We turned the company into what it always should have been." The next day, Maya received a letter that deeply moved her. It was from a young engineering student who had visited the company as part of a university project. "Dear Maya, my name is Claire Brooks, no relation, but I like the coincidence. I'm a civil engineering student, and I visited your company last month. I want you to know that your story inspired me to keep fighting for my dreams. I come from a humble family, and sometimes I feel discouraged by the prejudice I face in college. But seeing what you've accomplished gave me hope that I can make a difference in the world. Thank you for proving that a woman can indeed run a company with success and integrity." Maya carefully stored the letter in her special drawer, along with other similar letters she had received over the years. Each one represented a life positively touched by the company's transformation. At that moment, Martha walked into the office with a radiant smile. "Maya, wonderful news just came in. The National Engineering Association has chosen you as Businesswoman of the Year." Maya was surprised and moved. "Really? But there are so many more experienced businesswomen out there." The choice was unanimous. The committee said you represent the future of American business, ethical, inclusive, and socially responsible. The award ceremony would be in Washington, D.C., at an event that would bring together the country's top business leaders. Maya decided to bring Martha, Henry, Sarah, and Allison with her, the people who had been instrumental in the company's transformation. During the flight to Washington, D.C., Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 27 years old, with a degree in engineering, CEO of one of the most respected construction companies in the country. But more important than the titles were the values she had managed to implement and the lives she had helped transform. At the award ceremony, Maya stepped onto the stage to receive the prize before an audience of 500 business executives. Her speech was simple but powerful. "This award is not mine. It belongs to all the employees who believed in the possibility of building a company where dignity and success go hand in hand. It belongs to my grandfather, Silas Brooks, who taught me that true wealth is not in what we accumulate, but in what we build for future generations. And it belongs to all the women and men who face prejudice in their careers, but keep fighting for their dreams." The audience rose in sustained applause. After the ceremony, Maya was approached by dozens of executives wanting to learn more about her management practices. A business owner from Chicago commented, "Maya, I've run a company for 20 years, and I've never achieved the employee satisfaction rates you've reached. What's the secret?" "There's no secret," Maya replied. "Just treat your employees the way you'd like to be treated. Respect them, value them, and they'll give their best to the company." A businesswoman from Los Angeles added, "But how do you handle shareholder pressure for immediate results?" By showing that happy employees are more productive, take fewer absences, make fewer mistakes, and stay longer with the company. That leads to higher productivity and lower costs in the long run. During the flight back, Henry commented, "Maya, did you see how people reacted to your speech? I think you planted seeds that will sprout in many companies." "I hope so, Henry. If we can inspire other companies to adopt more ethical practices, we'll have multiplied the positive impact of our transformation." Back at the company, Maya found a surprise waiting for her. The employees had organized a celebration party for the award. The company yard was decorated with banners and balloons, and there was a table full of sweets and finger foods. Frank, now promoted to General Construction Supervisor, approached Maya with a proud smile. "Maya, we all wanted to thank you for giving dignity back to our work. 4 years ago, many of us were thinking about quitting. Today, we can't imagine working anywhere else." The party went on late into the night, with employees from every department sharing stories about how their lives had improved since the management change. Allison told how her daughter, now 3 years old, loved visiting the company daycare. "She always says she wants to be an engineer like Aunt Maya when she grows up." Michael, the accountant, told how his wife had fully recovered from cancer, thanks to the company's excellent health plan and the support she received during treatment. Martha, emotional, made a toast. "To Silas Brooks, who taught us that integrity is worth more than any wealth, and to Maya, who turned his teachings into reality." Everyone toasted, and Maya felt a deep emotion seeing how those people had become a true family. 6 months later, Maya was in her office when she received an unexpected call. It was from Arthur Sterling. "Maya, I hope you don't mind the call. I have some news to share." "Go ahead, Mr. Sterling." "I managed to open my own consulting firm. It's small, but it's completely honest. In every company I advise, I implement the same policies you created at Sterling Construction." Maya was genuinely surprised. "Congratulations, Mr. Sterling. How has the experience been?" "Difficult, but rewarding. For the first time in decades, I sleep with a clear conscience, and I discovered something interesting. Companies that implement their policies have better results than those that maintain old practices." "Are you happy?" Arthur paused before answering. "Maya, I don't know if I deserve to be happy after everything I've done, but I can say that I'm at peace with myself for the first time in years." "Mr. Sterling, everyone deserves a chance to start over. The important thing is that you've learned from your mistakes and are using that experience to help others." After hanging up, Maya reflected on how people can change when they face the real consequences of their actions. Arthur had lost everything, but maybe he had gained something more valuable: his integrity. Time passed quickly, and Maya found herself increasingly involved in activities beyond the company. She had become a sought-after speaker at universities and business conferences, always advocating for ethics in business. At a lecture at the University of Chicago, a student asked, "Maya, do you think it's possible to change the entire business culture of the country?" "Cultural changes happen one person at a time, one company at a time," Maya replied. "We can't change the whole world at once, but we can influence the sphere we operate in, and that influence spreads like ripples in a lake." The company continued to grow sustainably. Maya had opened 2 branches in neighboring cities, always maintaining the same principles of ethics and equality. Each new branch became an example for other companies in the region. One day, Maya was reviewing proposals for a new project when Sarah entered her office with exciting news. "Maya, you need to see this. I just got a call from the largest construction company in the state. They want to form a partnership with us for a massive project." "What kind of project?" "Construction of a new affordable housing complex. 5,000 homes for low-income families. The federal government chose our company as the leader of the consortium because of our reputation for integrity." Maya smiled, remembering how Arthur used to despise social projects, considering them not very profitable. Now the company's ethical reputation was bringing in the biggest contracts in its history. "Sarah, how many people will this project employ?" "Directly, about 2,000 people. Indirectly, we estimate it will generate jobs for another 5,000 people in the region. And the profit margin? Lower than in commercial projects, but the volume makes up for it. Besides, it's an opportunity to show that it's possible to build quality, affordable housing without corruption. Maya approved the project immediately. Over the following months, the housing complex became a national model for developing social projects with efficiency and transparency. The project attracted international attention, and Maya was invited to speak at a conference on affordable housing in Barcelona. Her presentation on ethical social construction was considered one of the best of the event. During the trip to Spain, Maya had time to reflect on her journey. 5 years had passed since she walked into the meeting room at Sterling Construction and transformed her life and the lives of hundreds of other people. The company now employed over 1,000 direct employees and had become the largest construction company in the region. Most importantly, it had become a symbol that it was possible to do business with ethics and social responsibility. Back in the United States, Maya found more news waiting for her. Martha had organized a surprise party to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the company's transformation. "Maya," Martha said during the event, "5 years ago, many of us had lost hope of working at a fair company. Today, we are an example for the entire country." Carlos, now the chief executive officer, presented the impressive numbers from the past 5 years: 400% growth in revenue, 0 serious accidents, employee turnover under 3%, and more than 200 professionals promoted based purely on merit. "But what I'm most proud of," Carlos continued, "is that we've built a new generation of leaders who will carry these values wherever they go." In fact, several former employees had left to start their own companies or take leadership positions in other organizations, always implementing the ethical principles they had learned. During the party, Maya received a special visit. It was Claire Brooks, the young student who had written her a letter years ago. Now graduated in engineering, she had been hired by the company. "Maya, I want you to know that your story inspired me throughout my entire engineering degree. Whenever I faced difficulties or prejudice, I remembered what you had accomplished, and it gave me the strength to keep going. Claire, the strength was always inside you. I just showed you that it was possible to use that strength to build something positive. Can I ask you a personal question? Did you ever regret confronting Arthur Sterling?" Maya thought for a moment before answering. "Claire, confronting injustice always comes with a price. I spent years planning, studying, working 16 hours a day to get here. There were moments of doubt, moments when I thought it would be easier to just accept the world as it was, but every time I saw an injustice being committed, I remembered my grandfather's pain and knew I had to keep fighting. And now? Are you happy?" Maya looked around, seeing employees of all ages and backgrounds talking animatedly, children playing in the recreation area, young engineers discussing innovative projects with seasoned veterans. "Claire, happiness isn't a destination, it's a journey. I'm happy because I know that every day I contribute to a slightly fairer world. I'm happy because I honor my grandfather's memory and the values he taught me. I'm happy because I turned pain into purpose." The party went on until late, and Maya took the opportunity to talk with employees from every department. Each conversation reinforced her conviction that she had made the right choices. End of story. Now tell me what you thought of this story and where you're following us from. Share in the comments your thoughts on Maya's journey and whether you believe she made the right decisions. We'd love to read your honest opinion on how courage and determination can transform not just a company, but an entire community. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories like this one.